Hi readers! So I'm going to continue with our read aloud for the Year of the Dog. We left off with a real Chinese person book. Okay, so get comfy as you listen. Making a book was a lot harder than saying I would make one. When I told Miss McCurdy that I wanted to make a book with a Chinese American person in it, she was very excited. That's a wonderful idea, she told me. Why don't you write about yourself? You're a Chinese American, and if you write your own experiences, your book is sure to be very unique. Miss McCurdy said over and over again that she wanted us to make books with unique and original ideas. She always tried to make us write stories from our own lives. Write what you know, she kept telling us. But most of us didn't seem to know as much as because we weren't doing very original ideas. Charlotte wrote a story that sounded a lot like Cinderella, except of two stepsisters. There was only one. Becky's story was a lot like the unicorn movie we watched, and Melody was doing an original idea, though. Her book was about flowers that talked to each other. She got the idea from her science fair project. She said since she learned plants had tastes like people, she'd write a story about them talking like people, too. But even with an original idea, I still didn't know what to write about. I knew I wanted to write about a Chinese person, and Miss McCurdy wanted me to write about my life, but I couldn't think of a part of my life to write about. There was just nothing exciting in my life. Maybe that was why there were no real Chinese people in books. We all had boring lives. I watched the rest of the class write their stories. I drew little pictures of dogs reading books. My mind was like an empty paper balloon. Miss McCurdy stopped by my desk. Writer's block? She asked me. What was writer's block? I asked. It's when a writer can't think of what to write. When you can't think of any words to write, she told me. I nodded my head. I definitely was having writer's block. What's the cure for it? I asked. You just have to relax. Not try so hard, Miss McCurdy said, and wait. Well, that was disappointing. Isn't there something I could do to make it disappear sooner? I asked her. Don't worry, Miss McCurdy told me. You'll find an idea. It will come to you. But I did worry. Finding a book idea was like finding myself. And I hadn't had much luck with that either. Chapter 14, or 18, the school play. At the same time as the book project, we were also working on The Wizard of Oz. There were rehearsals every week. Since I was only a munchkin, I thought rehearsals were pretty boring. I should have signed up for the orchestra like you, I told Melody. Who ever heard of a Chinese munchkin? That's not what I signed up for the orchestra for, Melody said. Besides, no one will probably even see you. That's true, I said, thinking about all the kids that were munchkins on stage. All we did was stand around and sing songs. But one day, Miss Malone said right before the song, we need a munchkin to give Dorothy a thank you gift for killing the Wicked Witch. Grace, we'll have you do it. Me? But then everyone would see me. What if I handed Dorothy the gift and everyone in the audience whispered to each other, a Chinese munchkin? There's no such thing as a Chinese munchkin. I tried to say something, but Miss Malone had hurried on to the Cowardly Lion. That day when I got home from school, Mom asked me what was wrong. Mom said, you have a goofy, grumpy face. What's wrong today? Miss Malone made me the munchkin that gives Dorothy the gift, I asked. Isn't that good? Mom asked. Now you have a part that's more special. No, I told her, it's horrible. It's so stupid that she picked me. Why is it stupid? Mom asked. I would think you'd be proud. Now everyone will see me, I said. Before, no one would notice me. But now I'll stick it out. People will say, Grace is a munchkin. Then they'll laugh at me. Everyone is going to laugh at me. Mom said. You sound like I did before my first day of school. Did I ever tell you about that? Mom's first day of school. The night before my first day of school, my mother told me that Amma, my grandmother, was going to bring me. Now remember, Amma grew up during a time when women bound their feet to make them smaller. Binding their feet did make them smaller, but oh, how painful it was to walk on them. So because it was difficult for Amma to walk, it was decided that Amma would walk me to school and wait outside for me all day until it was time to bring me back, so she wouldn't have to walk and make an extra trip. Now, was I grateful for Amma's sacrifice? No. I was embarrassed. What would my classmates think of me when my grandmother walked me to school and sat all day in the schoolyard waiting for me? They would think I was a baby who needed someone nearby at all times. I pleaded and begged for my parents to let me go alone, for someone else to bring me, but they refused. The next day, I was dreading going to school. Usually, I liked walking with Amma, unlike walking with my mother or father, whose large steps made me hop like a rabbit. Amma always walked slowly and deliberately, picking her steps like the way you would choose peaches at the market. But today, I hated walking with Emma. I dragged my feet as if they were stuck to the ground with honey. I hoped that by getting to school late, no one would see Emma walking with me. On the way, we met up with another student, a round-faced boy named Zhao Jai, who was walking with his grandmother as well. He scowled at me with fierce anger, and I started to feel that school was going to be a very unhappy and friendly place. The bell was ringing. When we finally reached the school, so far my plan was working. I hoped that no one would notice Emma as I left her outside, but my relief was short-lived because as soon as my classmates sat down in their seats, Zhao Jai made a noise like a tea kettle. "Look out the window!" He laughed and pointed. I was horrified. Was this terrible boy pointing at Emma and laughing at her? I joined my classmates at the window, and then I started laughing too. Outside in the schoolyard sat a whole row of grandmothers. They sat there like a line of birds on a telephone wire, gossiping and sharing tea. Everyone's grandmother was out there. I didn't need to feel embarrassed about Emma waiting for me the whole day. Mom finished, because everyone else's grandmother was doing the same thing. But it's not the same with the play, I said. Isn't it though, Mom asked. You're so worried about your part, you aren't seeing that there is nothing to worry about. Maybe, I said. But I did feel better. The Wizard of Oz, Chapter 19. On the night of the school play, the sky was as quiet as a feather falling. It was still and silent without movement from the wind or snow. I couldn't understand it at all. How could it be so calm when the play was about to happen? Backstage, everyone was running around, getting dressed and putting on makeup. Tin cans were being polished, straws was taped on, and green backdrops were whizzing around. Kathy Small, who played Glinda, had gotten her hair permed just for the occasion. I didn't have much to do. I had already put on my flowered munchkin apron and bonnet. Even though I didn't look much like a munchkin, my costume was perfect. Most of the munchkins had used old clothes belonging to their parents or grandparents to make their costumes, but my parents didn't have anything that looked right, so Mom and I went to the store and I picked out a green leaf material and delicate rosebuds scattered on it. It was called calico, which was what American pioneers girls wore, and it was exactly right for a munchkin. I also had a gift that I was supposed to hand to Dorothy. It was a shoebox covered with a blue sapphire wrapping paper and a big red bow. It was completely empty. I could toss it in the air like a balloon, but that didn't matter because Dorothy never ended up opening it, which I didn't think was right. If I were given a gift from a munchkin, I'd open it right away. Melody and I watched everyone rush around. It was as if there was a hurricane happening all around us. This is why I don't want to try out to be Dorothy, Melody told me. Too stressful. True, I said, but it's exciting. When you're one of us, you're without an important role. It's pretty boring. You've got an important role, Melody said. You're the gift-giving munchkin. Yeah, I'm given an empty box, I said. Great present. Actually, Danny Dog has the biggest role out of us all, Melody laughed. Danny Dog was Melody's stuffed animal. He was going to be Toto. Becky had volunteered Scruffy, but Miss Malone said a real dog would be unreliable. So Melody brought fuzzy chocolate-colored Danny Dog. Most of the time, Danny Dog was carried in her Dorothy's basket, so he really didn't get much to do either. Though one of the boys did bark off stage to give him a voice. Melody was dressed all in black. All the orchestra was dressed in black, so they wouldn't be too obvious. Melody wanted to wear black makeup too, but Miss Malone said it wouldn't be necessary. Grace, Melody, Miss Malone said, get to your places. The curtains will go up in 10 minutes. Melody waved goodbye as she went to the orchestra pit, which was in the area in the front of the stage. I joined the other munchkins and thought about the play. First, Emma would be in her blue checkered Dorothy costume, which was made from a tablecloth, talking to Toto, Danny Dog, and the curtains would open and show Oz. Then the munchkins would come in and sing, and then I would give my gift. I knew Mom was right, and probably everybody was busy thinking about their own parts to wonder why there would be a Chinese munchkin. But I still worried. Would they laugh and whisper? I heard clapping from the audience. It was loud. That meant there were probably a lot of people. I tried to smooth out the wrinkled wrapping paper on my gift. Miss Malone beckoned us all as munchkins filed through the door and went on stage. Never before did the stage feel so big. I was glad. There were other munchkins in front of the back of me. Emma looked so much like Dorothy with her braided hair and blue and white dress that I forgot the second that I was in a play, and I thought I was watching her on TV. The orchestra played, and the munchkins began to sing. As soon as the song was over, it would be time for me. I opened and closed my mouth, but no words came out. I just looked at the space between Dorothy and me. How many steps would it be? 10? 14? Suddenly, one of the munchkins nudged me. Grace, the munchkin hissed, go! It was time. I walked forward, and there was a bright spotlight on me. I tried to look into the audience, but I couldn't see anyone. I didn't hear anything except for my own breathing. With every step, I got closer to Emma, and she smiled at me, a play smile full of teeth, one for the audience. As she took the gift, I felt like I was giving her a 10-pound rice sack. I curtsied like we practiced, and as I looked to my shoes, I heard thunder. It was applause for me. No one had laughed or whispered about a Chinese munchkin at all. I smiled into the bright light towards the audience, and I headed back to join the rest of the munchkins. The rest of the play floated by like a soap bubble. Once I looked down in the orchestra pit and saw Melody making faces at me. I didn't dare make one back at her, but I couldn't keep from laughing. I pulled my bonnet over my face so no one could see. After Dorothy clicked her heels 3 times, the play was over and everyone lined up for a bow. The audience gave us a standing ovation. That must have been really good. I bet, and I had the best gift-giving Chinese munchkin ever. Chapter 20. Digging up a good book idea. When the play was over, everyone was concentrating on the book project. Almost everyone had finished their writing his or her stories, and I hadn't even thought of a good idea. I still had writer's block. I knew Miss McCurdy said an idea would come to me, but I didn't want to get a bad grade on the project because of writer's block. But I couldn't think of anything unique about me. I thought about writing about the science fair like Melody, but since we didn't discuss anything, it didn't seem like it was a good idea. I thought about writing about Albert's red egg party, but that was about Albert, not me. When I got home from school that day, I found Mom in the backyard. Spring was here. The snow had melted away for good and had left everything smelling like a wet towel. The leaves on the trees were just starting to peek out, looking like small emerald ornaments hanging on the branches. And my shoes were coated with mud as if they had been dipped in chocolate. It was gardening time. Uh-oh, Mom said, grumpy face again. Did something go wrong at school? I have writer's block. I told her, I can't think of an idea to write for my book project. Everyone else is almost done writing their stories, and I haven't even started. Mom said. Maybe if you help me dig, it'll loosen up your writer's block and give you an idea. That won't give me an idea, I laughed. You just want me to help you. Still, I put on my blue garden overalls and helped Mom dig away. Mom always needed help with her garden. It was because she grew special Chinese vegetables. It took a lot of time. We would dig and dig and dig and then plant the seeds that looked like medicine pills. After that, we would water the whole garden with a hose, so much that it looked like as if there had been a flood. While we were digging, Mom tried to help me come up with ideas. Why don't you write about the school play? She suggested, or Chinese New Year. I kept shaking my head. None of these ideas seemed right. I threw the ideas away like I threw away the dirt from our shovels. Soon we were both tired and decided to take a rest. I don't know if I'm more tired from digging dirt or digging for an idea for you, Mom said. Digging is hard work. If you planted flowers instead of Chinese vegetables, I told her, we wouldn't have to work so hard. But then you wouldn't get to eat your favorite soup, Mom told me. Do you remember the first time I planted Chinese vegetables? I remembered. Mom's whole garden had been full of weird-looking Chinese vegetables. They were yellow and bumpy and lumpy. Some of them looked like watery frogs, and some looked like purple sausages. I couldn't understand why she wanted to grow them. But when she made soup out of them, I changed my mind. This soup was so good. Eating it was like swallowing a nice warm hug after being in the cold. You thought they were ugly vegetables, Mom laughed. They are still ugly, I told her, but they taste delicious. Yummy, ugly vegetables. Suddenly, it hit me. Here was a good idea for my book. I could write about the ugly vegetables. And me. You were right, I told Mom. Digging cured my writer's block. Good, she said. Now just imagine what will happen if you help me water. And that leaves us off on chapter 21, Making a Book. And we'll pick that up on Monday.